You
Right.
start building them out here. Really, what factory can you say really was built in Milwaukee really after that time? Even with the Holiday factories we talk about in Milwaukee, Briggs and Stratton, all that was built prior to blacks coming up north.
Right.
They was built prior to 1919.
Yeah, you're
See,
right.
you see what
You're
I'm saying?
absolutely
So
right.
you gotta understand that after that, they started to build the suburbs further out. This is why even if you work at a temp service, most times you're paying for bus transportation or some type of ride to go out to
To
the
the
job,
job
right?
because they're
And
out in Sussex and Waukesha and Brookfield and Wauwatosa and South Milwaukee and Oak Creek. Yeah.
now understand when you a child, any disruption in school, anything that happens when you catch a ticket, what happens? They suspend your driver's license.
Right. Even though you're a child, so you're not driving no vehicle.
And you know when you find out about it? When you apply for your license.
Wow.
And see, they took driver's ed out of high school. So you don't apply for your driver's license till you turn 18. You finish high school. Now you looking for employment. The job's way out, right?
Right.
So you got to go to a temp service because you can't drive out there. Or if you do drive out there, then you start to catch tickets. Those pile out. Now you end up with other issues. See, it's
Right.
a lot of restraints that
Right.
come with. That's why they pocket you in
And
an
and
area.
it's not done by accident.
Right. That's
It
why I
is a concerted effort.
right. I pocket majority units evidence. So when they pulling you over for driving while black, this is for a purpose,
Right.
right? It's just the same as like I said when I separated the tank with the fish and I put the
Right.
glass piece through and they bumped their nose a few times, then they didn't cross it no more
Because
because
they
they
were
was eating at the.
psychologically conditioned to continue to do the same thing that you taught them to do when you put that glass between them, and they had to keep bumping their noses or whatever into the glass, the invisible glass. But after a while, they realize that something is going to stop me from getting to the other one.
Right.
And it's the same thing they did with us. And they use red line, different tactics of redlining, like you said, eminent domain. They built these highways and demolished all these communities, and it pretty much restricted you from where you can go and how you can get there. Like you were saying,
Most
like with the
projects was
right,
built with a major street dividing it from the houses across the street from it, right?
right,
And because people move where they're most comfortable at, right?
right,
That's why you used to see people back in the day in Chicago, like they hardly ever leave the projects. They was comfortable there, right? Because as a kid, your mother teach you don't cross that street right there, right? So you stick to what you familiar with, familiarity. Now they did that in a study before they actually developed that, right?
right,
The Human Zoo Project, stuff like that.
right,
So they did a study. You could look that up. It's called the Human Zoo. But they did a study using rats and stuff like that,
right,
you know, to practice how they would build the projects. You know, so part of the freeway system was to create them divisions, right? From you traveling from one area to the next,
right.
you know, and then they used the police pulling over, the police harassment and the over policing to reinforce those lines.
Right. Okay, I'm glad you shared that, and I know the readers, the listeners, and the watchers, and the ones who's going to read the comments that come, from listening and watching. I believe they're going to feel a lot better and feel more enlightened about how these things has continued to affect their lives today. Because as you said, this was not only a practice they did then, but since none of it's changed, it's still the same practice. It's just masked because you're most of us is overwhelmed with so many other things to focus on that the very thing that's in front of you, you don't even see anymore. You don't see it for what it is and for what its intended purposes was, which is to continue to keep you marginalized, which is the same thing that they did when they implemented redlining. Okay, we're going to build this through these communities, so we're gonna basically block them off from being able to move. And like you pointed out, and we have these uh, assigned personnel that's going to make sure that they monitor them and ticket them and give them all these extra restrictions that's going to remind them you're going where you're not wanted, you're going where you wasn't given permission to go. So all of that, would you say that also is what helped lead to a sense of depression and feelings of uh, inescapable feelings of we can't win.
Well, I definitely believe, if I just looked at my conditions and I just looked around and I didn't look into how we got in that condition, I would definitely feel like, we can't win. Like
Right.
what to do about it? Like,
Right.
I think understanding how we got in that condition or understand that it was a plan, strategy. So once you understand that these are the strategies that was used against me, then you know how to combat it, right?
Right.
So that's my whole take on it.
Right.
Like, okay, you think you gonna force me here? I can turn this into something that you gonna want to be, right?
Right.
And we've done that many a times, right?
Right.
They did not want hip hop,
Right.
right? Now they can't be without it. You know,
Right.
you go through any YouTube page and they
Right.
critiquing hip hop,
Right.
but
Right.
they hated hip hop.
Right.
You
Because they
just
didn't understand it.
right,
And-
but that's what all our everything we do.
Right.
You see, we make it something to come to. You know,
Right.
so the whole issue we have is that okay, we under this the game they're playing, right?
Right.
It's economic castration.
Right.
Acknowledge it.
For what it is, whether you like it or not.
Acknowledge the goal is to economically castrate your community,
Right.
right?
Right.
So now, what is your goal, right?
Right.
And is your actions going to reflect your goal,
Right.
right? So is your goal to economically build your community so that there's opportunities and resources available for your children to grow and prosper? Or do you just want to tell them they could be everything they want to be,
Right.
right?
Without showing them.
So, because you can tell them this, you can say, oh, you could be anything you want to be. But if I say, what about an entrepreneur? Then they say, well, they could be an entrepreneur. I say, well, it take capital to do that.
Right.
Building the capital, it take a market to do that. You
Right.
have the concept of supporting the circulating wealth in your community because they don't want to.
Right.
Every other race has proven that they don't want to come to your community and circulate wealth from your community. They just want to drain wealth out your community.
Right.
Everybody else has proven that.
Right.
Arabs, don't know Arabs live next door to you. They own the gas stations in your neighborhood.
Right.
The Indians, they don't live next door to you. They live in their community.
Right.
They own the corner store in your community, though.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just a fact.
Right. Right. Right.
So, you love fast and friendly, but you go in there, you only gonna see blacks behind the meat counter.
Right.
He only got his kind behind the cash register. So he telling you, y'all thieves. I don't trust you with my money. He cut the meat up.
Right.
Right?
Ironic that you use that as an example. Some time ago, in the 80s, I lived in that neighborhood, 27th Kilbourne, Wisconsin Wells. And at the time I lived in there, over there, fast and friendly, the gas station that was once across the street, and most of those small storefronts from 27th and State all the way to Wisconsin were black owned. And I have to admit, sadly, that during that same period of time, unbeknownst to me, my understanding wasn't as broad as it has grown over the years. I watched each one of them leave.
Yeah.
And that goes back to what you always saying about circulating wealth within your community, because every one of them stores, I bought stuff. I bought from the store, the music store, of course. I bought from that store. I shopped at Fast and Friendly. We went to the gas station that was across the street. I later on learned it was a relative of mine that actually owned that gas station, black. Then they had the gift shop. They had a couple gift shops over there, a couple tailoring shops, and a couple figurine shop, but all of this was black. Everybody, I actually met the proprietors and the owners. I used to go into their stores all the time. So yeah, it was during that time, as you pointed out, that there was a concerted effort to economically push them out of those communities. And within 3 years, the last one to hold out was a brother that had uh, the record store. He had the record store. He held out for as long as he could because he ended up transferring it to 21st and North Avenue. I remember because I followed him. Um, but during that period of time, by slow process, started seeing uh, Pakistanians and whatnot come into these neighborhoods and have these properties. The only store, the only shop over there that wasn't black owned that I recall was a place called Judy's that was on 27th and Kilbourne on the southeast corner. Um, and I'm not sure what that. It was always a white guy, big white guy, but it was always blacks that worked in there besides the big white guy. Other than that, all the other shops was there. But at that time, I watched that transformation, and like I said, unbeknownst to me at the time, and they explained it to me, and I listened to them, and I believed them because I watched it take place, and I would always talk to them. But my full grasp of it wasn't as profound as it was when I got older and started doing just what you said. If we need to start learning about the things that still affect us now, that was done and implemented and put down decades ago,
Well,
hundreds of years ago.
we miseducated about economics, and we are looking at it from the viewpoint of Europeans too, right?
Right,
Uh, First, black people have to look at business as a social endeavor as well as an individual endeavor,
right,
right? And the reason why they're able to come to you with a big stack of money is because you only looking at it as an individual endeavor,
right,
right?
right,
And see, the social endeavor is understanding the ability to create opportunities and provide services for your community, right?
right,
Uh, for others in your community. So that's the social aspect, you know.
right,
So that's why cash flow is more significant than a lump sum, right?
right,
And that's something that we have to begin to value the concept of being producers. Um, you know, more so than what makes the most money is what do you produce, you know,
right,
what do I provide, you know, what
right,
type of services, what is it contributing, because there's many ways for of a business providing you with wealth, not just cash, you know.
right,
And I think that's the first aspect of it, you know. And white people have done that, you know. They looked at business as social, right? So they placed a certain value where we're going to give other white people loans, right? Because I understand the benefit and significance of him thinking like that for me, right?
right,
So, and that's the point that black people have to understand, you know, that that the empowerment of somebody else to look like you empowers you,
right,
you know. And Arabs understand that. The Indians, from India, they understand that,
right,
uh, and they pull their resources together,
right,
right? So as black people, my thing is I already know that white people going to charge me higher interest than they charge black people, right? They're going to charge me at the black bank higher than they charge white people, right? So I'm looking at my people like we can pull our resources together and do it ourselves, but we just have to learn to trust each other, and that's difficult when you come from what happened with the whole redlining process.
right,
Because I can have two lions roam the Sahara together, right?
right,
And they'll fight together, whatever,
right,
right? But if you capture them, put them in that cage, and you starve them, it's a different story. They're gonna
right,
fight it out. They're gonna fight to death over this meat. But when they're
right,
in the Sahara, we brothers, we riding together. We gonna go hunt,
right,
right? So when you economically castrate a certain community and then you force them in to stay in that certain area and they have to eat off each other, there's a lot of distrust is built up,
Right.
you know, and that's what that's what we got to tackle, right? And then not only the distrust from the red line and the placing us in that, with the actions of us fighting over the minimal resources, is we absorb the image that America gave us of us.
Right.
So they gave us that image that every time you see us, we at each other's throat.
Right.
You know, wasn't nobody Bloods and Crips nowhere else until Colors. Colors, the movie Colors spread it